Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to improve your balance by learning how to change weight and pivot. We're going to apply this to real life examples, and then in the last part of the video, we're going to look at 3 specific Tai Chi techniques where we have to pivot correctly, and these will be good exercises that you can use in order to make sure that you are pivoting and changing weight in the proper manner. That's going to help improve your balance and hopefully reduce your risk of falling. Tai Chi is one of the best or the best exercises for reducing fall risk in people who are older. And part of that is because it teaches people how to shift weight and pivot correctly. And so that's what we're going to focus on in this video. In order to pivot correctly, we need to change weight off of the foot that we mean to pivot on. When I talk about pivoting, I'm talking about turning the foot either inward or outward. And we need to be able to do that in a proper manner, which means that we have to remove the weight from the pivoting foot before we try to shift the weight. When I talk about weight, I'm not talking about just the center of gravity and where it is, because I can have my center of gravity between the 2 feet and I can pivot this foot without a problem. But at the same time, I can't pivot this foot because even though my spine is between the 2 feet, I have my weight on my left foot, so I can pivot my right foot, and I cannot pivot my left foot. So weight is more than just the center of gravity. It also is the energy or the rooting that we are doing using our core muscles. There's 3 elements of the core that we're going to need to use to root the body and to turn the body or pivot the foot. And we need to understand how all of these 3 parts of the body work in coordination with one another in order to do these movements effectively. The first part of the body we're talking about is the upper part of our waist. So we can use the upper part of our waist, abdominal muscles, to turn the body to the right or turn the body to the left. But you can see that I can do this and it doesn't do anything to my feet in terms of making them pivot. We also have our lower waist, our lower abdominal muscles. Those we use to root our spine to one leg or the other. When I'm standing with my weight between the 2 feet, you can't really see which leg my lower abdominal muscles are rooting. It's much easier to see when we do obvious motions like this when we shift weight, which people do all the time in the real world. We are using our lower abdominal muscles to put our weight over one leg and free up the other leg. And people do this all the time when we're standing in line or standing still in any other situation. People shift weight like this. We're using our lower abdominal muscles to link our spine with the leg towards which we're turning the lower abdominal muscles. What this means is that we're only activating the lower abdominal muscles on one side or another, not both at the same time. Tai Chi, one of the essential principles is to avoid double weighting. And that's kind of what this is talking about. We either are going to root the right leg or root the left leg. If we try to root both legs, we end up pitching the spine backwards or the pelvis backwards like this, and we end up being unable to shift weight because we have root on both, and we end up stuck. Tai Chi teaches us how to move fluidly between the legs because we're constantly changing the root from one to the other, and we're never on both legs at the same time. Some of the Tai Chi techniques I'm going to go review at the end of the video are going to demonstrate in a very specific way how to shift weight from one to the other. But first, I want to just talk in real life terms about how we do this. If we're trying to step off to the left or step off to the right, we have to remove the weight from the foot that we mean to lift off the ground and turn. If we don't learn how to do this correctly, it can put us in a dangerous position where we try to shift and turn without changing the weight, and the foot is stuck to the ground and we end up falling over. This happens very frequently, and we can prevent it by learning how to shift the spine first using our lower abdominal muscles. So if you think about your belly button, if the belly button is going to turn to the left, that is akin to using your lower abdominal muscles and turning them to the left. And that's going to link my spine with that left leg and then allow me to move my right leg more freely. I can also turn my lower abdominal muscles or my belly button to the right and root the right leg, freeing up my left leg. If we want to fully pivot or turn, we have to coordinate not only the lower abdominal muscles doing the rooting, but also the upper abdominal muscles that I mentioned that help turn the body. There's two types of pivots that we're going to work on today. One is going to be an outward pivot where I'm going to turn one foot out. And then the second is going to be an inward pivot where we're going to turn the foot in. Both of these are essential to normal body movement and our everyday locomotion. The first thing we have to learn when we're trying to pivot in or out is that we need to divide up the movements generally into two sections. I can't remove the weight from my right leg and turn out at the same time and expect to have a full 90-degree turn of the body. If I'm going to do a 90-degree turn fully to the right, I first need to shift the weight to the left leg without turning the body to the right. That means I have to turn both my lower abdominal muscles, which is the root, to the left leg, and the upper abdominal muscles towards the left leg. So now I have completely freed up my right leg, and I am now able to turn my right upper abdominal muscles, which were turning this way, and switch that to my left upper abdominal muscles and turn the body. What you'll find is if you try to turn at the same time as you're doing the root, initially, you're not going to be able to turn the foot out. And this is what leads some people to think that their hips don't have a big range of motion, whether they're turning inward or outward. They're not coordinating the upper and lower waist parts of the turn correctly. In order to do the full turn, I first need to turn this way to free the leg up. Now I have a full turn I can do with the upper torso to turn the leg out. If I try to turn to the right as I'm changing weight initially, then the next part of the movement, when I pick my leg up, there's no turn left to have because I've already used that turn up with the upper part of the waist. And then we don't end up being able to do the full turn. So I need to shift weight without turning first, and then I can use the upper abdominal muscles to turn. That will apply whether I'm shifting to the left leg to turn to the right or shifting to the right leg to turn to the left. For a quick review, first change weight and free the leg up, then use the upper part of the waist to turn. Don't try to do them simultaneously. The same is going to apply for an inward pivot of the foot, but the upper abdominal muscles are going to do the opposite of what I just described. If I want to do an inward pivot of my right leg, I first need to shift the weight to the left, but not shift the turn to the left. I need to save the turn until after the weight shift. So I'm going to shift my root with the lower abdominal muscles while turning my upper abdominal muscles to the right. So essentially, I'm continuing to face forward as I shift the weight. Now I have no weight on my right leg. The root is all on the left leg. Now I can use the upper torso to pivot the foot in. Just like with the outward pivot, I can't do them all at the same time. If I change my root at the same time I am changing my upper waist rotation towards the left, then I have no other turn left to give at this point. And this is where you see it seems like I can't turn my hip in enough. So I might think my hip range of motion is not good enough to do the turn. but that's because I already used up the upper part of the turn. When I change weight this way, now I have plenty of upper body rotation to turn the hip in. The lack of rotation of the hip had nothing to do with the hip joint. It had to do with the upper waist part of the rotation. So change weight again without the turn, and then use your upper part of the waist to turn the foot and the whole body in your new direction. We can use these inward and outward pivots as a practice exercise, turning around in a full circle. We can practice shifting weight and turning, shifting weight and stepping, shifting weight and pivoting. We can walk around in a circle, practice this simple exercise in one direction, and then practice in the other direction. If you do this very slowly, it's going to help you understand how to change weight and then pivot. Change weight, pivot, change weight, pivot, change weight, pivot, change weight, pivot. Practice that, and that's going to improve your balance.